Hey, what's up guys, it's An, and in this video I'm going to show you guys how I raise my Daphnia for my bettas. And I know a lot of you guys have asked me this question on how I raise my Daphnia, and I'm going to show you guys two methods to raise them. One is with green water and the other one is with Spirulina powder. So before I get started, take a look at this. So lately I've just been feeding my fish Daphnia for the past month or so, mainly because my coach has been so successful that I never really have to use anything else. And if you guys follow my method, you guys will have a constant supply of live food source for your fish for the next couple months, as long as you follow the direction carefully. So to culture your green water, so I'm going to go over that one first. First thing you need to do is actually save all the water that you take out when you're doing a water change. You should be doing water changes bi-weekly or every week at least. Now the reason why you want to save it, because your old tank water has a lot of like ammonia and all these nitrates and all this stuff that the green water actually really likes to consume, proliferate from, because green water itself uses photosynthesis to proliferate and create what you know is green water. So that's why a lot of time when you go out, go outside and you look at like old ditches or a lake that's been just bombarded by the sun for a long period of time, the water turns green, right? And a lot of time this water that you guys see turn green are actually like wastewater. So why not just save all the wastewater from your tank when you're doing water changes and turn it into food? So I'm going to show you guys how to do that in a bit. But first, if you do it correctly, you should have a culture that looks like this. Here you go. Look how green that is. Alright, so we're in my fish room inside my garage, and these are the tanks I have inside, and this is kind of in a rack system. So I actually haven't cleaned these tanks out in like 6 months. Actually, I haven't even cleaned them out ever since I set them up. So they do have circulating water from being in a rack system, but they still need to do some vacuuming and get rid of the fish poop and leftover food. So the fish poop is actually the good stuff. So I'm just gonna go ahead and clean and try to see how much water I can get out of this and start culturing my green water. Alright, so I am outside and I have prepared a bucket to start growing green water. So here's the bucket of fish waste that I just got. And in this bucket I actually put in a little bit of tap water because you want to have that calcium and magnesium inside the water so that the green water algae spores can actually proliferate. They kind of need that calcium and magnesium to proliferate, and without it, they might have a difficult time. So I always add in a little bit of tap water. I don't really bother to dechlorinate it. It doesn't seem to make a big difference, but yeah. So what I also do here is give it a little bit of fertilizer. Here I'm using shake and feed. Any amount would actually work fine. Any type would work fine, especially one that has a lot of ammonia. But the important thing is not to use too much, because if you use too much, then your algae will just die from just being over fertilized. So I'm gonna show you guys how much I actually am there. But see, that actually might be too much. So I'm just gonna not use all that, just a little bit, and then put the rest for my plants. Okay. Then I'm gonna go ahead and pour in the fish waste water. Alright, so that wasn't good. The handle of my bucket just broke off and I almost spilled water over the floor. Jesus Christ. So you're wondering why the edge of these freaking containers all chewed up. My dogs, they did a number on these buckets. It's kind of suck, but it is what it is. Alright, so another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some of this green water here. I have another tank, and just kind of inoculate this batch with the green water, kind of give it a kickstart. And so here you go. Pretty much have everything ready, and as long as the sun blasts it full force for 8-12 hours, you should have green water in about 2 weeks. Now, I like to actually raise my culture outdoors, but I also take some of that water and put it indoors too. So in case I need to use that and to constantly supply the Daphnia that I actually raise indoor. So I raise the green water outdoor, or culture the green water outdoors, but I raise the Daphnia itself indoors. And really the reason for that is because when I'm raising them outdoors, I'm not in control how much the Daphnia is reproducing, and sometimes the Daphnia can actually consume more of the green water and you end up with a crash culture. And speaking of crashing, I think a lot of reasons why people fail to raise Daphnia is because they're not doing enough water changes for the Daphnia, because the Daphnia themselves produce waste, and particularly phosphates. And if the phosphate level goes too high in your tank, then it will crash. And when it does crash, it will happen in like a day or two where everything will die, and so all your Daphnia will be gone. So I suggest that you change the water in your Daphnia tank every 2 to 3 days or so. Not too much, maybe like 10 to 15%, and once in a while do a big change. So this is the 2 tank I use indoors to raise the Moinas and Daphnia. And the super green tank on the right is the Moinas, and the browner tank is the Daphnia. So if you notice, Moinas tend to consume a lot less food than Daphnia does. So I actually have to change this tank, the water in this tank, almost every day, and then refill with green water that I'm raising outside. So you also notice I am also running a light lamp through this. Now I run this light through both of these tanks. I kind of switch them off, which size I put them in. Pretty much a couple hours a day to like extend the photo period, because green water really proliferates when the photo period is past 12 hours a day. So that is the one thing that they have evolved to kind of like survive over plants, because plants don't really benefit from a photo period that's past 12 hours, but green water do. They don't have that limitation. And so it's just like if you left the lights on your fish tank, like you have a planted tank and you left it on for, you know, 10 or 12 hours or 14 hours a day, then you tend to get green water. And that's why people get green water. You have excess nutrients like ammonia, phosphates, nitrates, and you have an extended photo period. And the spores, the green water spore, and the specific species I think is Chlorella something. I gotta look it up. I'll show you guys later. Those species will tend to outcompete the plants for nutrients, and will proliferate at a much faster rate if the photo period is past 12 hours. And so I'm kind of stimulating that by just leaving the lights on for like 12 hours a day, and then kind of switching them off between the Moinas and the Daphnia. And just to note, when your tank is starting to look this green, I mean, this is green water. It just looks very brown. One, because there's tons of Daphnia in there. And two, it's because the Daphnia are actually producing waste. And so when it's this brown, you want to start using your Daphnia more often, and you probably want to do daily water changes. Just to, like, I can just scoop my hand up and look at this. Oh, it's just so much of them. Pretty much an unlimited food source if you do this correctly. If you notice, I am also running a airstone through this. I'm not airstone, sorry, just an airline to really circulate the water and keep the water that the Moinas and Daphnia are in, very well oxygenated. And I actually don't want to run. You don't want to run an airstone because the fine bubbles that the airstone make will tend to get trapped underneath the shell of the Daphnia and kind of like not allow them to swim properly. So just all you gotta do is use a regular airstone like I'm using right here, and just put it on that, and you should have tons and tons of Daphnia that you probably can't even use up in time. I'm gonna show you how much I got. So I'm gonna take a scoop just like that, and look at that. So every day I just take a scoop and then feed my fish, and it seems like I never run out of Daphnia. Now the Moinas are a lot smaller, so you're not gonna be able to see them. So, but they're there. They're super tiny. Think of them as like super small version of Daphnia. The adult Moinas are about the size of a baby Daphnia, and the Moinas babies are about the size of like a baby brine shrimp. So they're actually really good for like fries, raising fries. Both of them actually. So one of the reasons why I really like to use green water is because I can actually use the Daphnia and Moinas to kind of power raise the fries. So if you take a look at this fry tank I have here, I don't know if you can see there. This one guy right there. There's another guy, I think in the corner here. It's kind of hard to see because the water's really cloudy and green. But if you take a look closely, see if I can try to manual focus this. There's tons of Daphnia and Moinas in the tank. And so what I kind of do is really just raise the fries in the green water with the Daphnia and Moinas. And as the Daphnia and Moinas reproduce, they pretty much provide a constant food source for my fries. So if you're like me and you don't like to feed the fries every day, then this is actually a really great method, because I don't really have to worry about missing a day where I'm not feeding them. See, their bellies are always going to be full, and they're going to grow super fast because they're having a constant source of food. I know it's hard to see them, but it's actually a bunch of them inside the tank. But yeah, this is like a really great method, and all I really do is just top up the water with green water and add more Daphnia. And I do this pretty much every other week. I don't really have to feed them every day. Super fast, super easy. Great way to raise fries. Let's talk about if you cannot, for whatever reason, culture green water and you kind of want to raise them indoors using like a food source medium like spirulina or yeast, but I honestly prefer spirulina. Now what you're going to need first is you're going to need at least a minimum 5-gallon tank. Now the bigger is always better, but 5-gallon would work too, or a 5-gallon bucket. And what you're also going to need is to use tap water, not use fish tank water, but tap water. And the reason why you want to use tap water is because tap water, at least in Southern California, has higher amount of calcium and magnesium carbonates in it. Because the Moinas and Daphnia, they need to have that calcium and magnesium in the calcium content, the water hardness, to proliferate, or else they kind of not do so well in salt water. So make sure that you're using tap water. If your tap water somehow in some way it's soft, then an addition of like a water hardener like calcium carbonate would work just fine. Okay, so once you have your tap water tank set up, you want to need to first dechlorinated it. So I'm just using regular old dechlorinator. Anything works fine. This is what I just have with me right now. The brand doesn't really matter, and you want to just put it in the water, put it in the tank, and just kind of let it sit, give it a swirl before you put your Daphnia in. And I'm going to show you guys how to actually feed the Daphnia with spirulina powder properly, because I think this is where a lot of people mess up. They tend to use way too much and they don't change the water often, because what you need to know is that spirulina powder is not active, it's already dead. So they can actually foul the water or rot the water. So make sure you keep your water changes and make sure you don't overfeed it. Okay, so I have my tank set up already with the tap water that's already dechlorinated. And the first thing I'm going to do is run an air tube through it, because you want to have the water circulating. Daphnia really proliferates in a highly oxygenated environment, so having a good water circulation is always beneficial. So I'm just going to simply use an airline tubing like this, and just kind of leave it like that. You don't need to do any special. You need sometimes it might be good to have something holding it down, but I just don't have one with me right now. It'll be fine. Okay, and the next thing you're going to do is put in your Daphnia. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So let's have like some Daphnia right here. So you can see it, that's the Daphnia. Go ahead and drop it inside. Alright, that is actually more than enough. They'll triple that size in a couple weeks. Okay, I'm going to show you how to properly mix the spirulina powder to feed them, because I think this is where most people messed up. So this is the spirulina powder that I use. I just got this out of Amazon. I got this actually 2 years ago and I never ran out of it. So it doesn't really matter what brand you use, as long as it's pure and it's good quality. This is what it looks like inside. Just a nice green bag. And this is how you prepare to feed the Daphnia. You're gonna go ahead and grab just some water, just like that. Not too much, just the right amount. I'm gonna go ahead and scoop up some spirulina powder off camera. I'll just scoop it up for you guys right here. So let's show you how much I use. So every day I use about that much. That's how little you use. Just to show a comparison, this is the size of my finger. That's how little you use. You don't use a lot at all. Okay, I'm gonna mix it in the water. Give it a good swirl. Make sure it's all broken up. And this is where the airline comes handy because the circulating water kind of keeps the spirulina powder suspended, which helps because if you don't have good circulation of water, the spirulina powder just kind of will settle down at the bottom, and then the Daphnia might not be able to eat it. And spirulina is actually really healthy. It has full vitamins, high in protein. If I'm feeding my Daphnia to my bettas, I want to give it the best food source, and spirulina is, in my opinion, the best one. It's way better than yeast, just in terms of like the nutritional content. It's also really high in vitamin B12, which is essential for any animal to grow. It's an essential vitamin. Okay, so that's pretty much how much I use. I don't use any more than that, and I pretty much just let it go here. Put it in. The water has a slight greenish blue tinge because spirulina is a cyanobacteria, so it's a little different than green water. The chlorella algae is, it's gonna be a lot more green, and this is a little bluish green, but it's fine. It should work. Let's say, for example, you want to change the water in your Daphnia tank. Now you should be doing this every 3 to 2 days, depending on how many Daphnia you have inside. And this process is pretty simple. What I do is I use a brine shrimp net, and I take a cup. You can use any cup. I just have this flash for me, and pretty much I change out a good amount, maybe like a gallon to half a gallon. And I would pour, say for example, when I dump this water, I would pour it through the brine strip net like so, not back into the tank, but you know what I'm saying. And that way I can save all the Daphnia before getting it lost, before trashing it essentially. Actually, in fact, like say you're gonna feed your fish Daphnia every day, just go ahead and just do this, and just like filter out the Daphnia out of your tank and use whatever you got here, and then just replace the water. That way you can kind of make sure that you are constantly changing the water of the Daphnia tank, because when the population get into a high enough concentration, it will crash because of the increase in phosphates and all the waste material. Just before I end this video, I want to kind of show you guys why I really love green water as the medium to raise Daphnia. Just take a look at the concentration. I'm going to show you guys how much Daphnia I get inside. I recently changed out the water, so it's really nice and green. It's not brown. You want to make sure that it's not brown, because that's not good. Just click that. Oh, trying to get the camera in focus. There you go. That's just one scoop. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I hope you guys found this video to be very informative. If you guys have any other question, or you guys have suggestion for me to make a different video on something that you guys have question about, please leave it on a comment below and I might consider it. Thanks for watching.